Okay, we're now recording, and I'd like to welcome you all to our council meeting tonight. And I'd like to first of all do acknowledgement of country, and I'd like to acknowledge and pay respects to the First Peoples of the River Murray and Mallee region, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which we meet. As I said before, everybody on mute, please, and if you wish to speak, please raise your hand, and I'll acknowledge you to unmute and talk. And I need to go slow for Jules to make sure she can keep up to date with us. And as I said, we have Murray Pioneer Zoom. They're only on audio anyway, so I've got him to mute. So apologies, Neil. Members' declarations. Has anybody got any declaration that they want to declare in relation to the agenda items? See some shakes of the head there, so we'll take that as nil. Deputations are nil. Questions from the gallery, obviously nil. Motion of condolence. Someone prepared to move the motion of condolence. So I've got Sim is moving it and Maria is seconding it. Sim, sorry. Sim. Councillor Sim Marley and Councillor Spano. Okay, all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Confirmation of the minutes to the ordinary meeting held on the 24th of March. Someone prepared to move that they be received and confirmed. Councillor Maddox, Councillor Sims. All those in favour? That's carried. I don't know whether you were voting there, Jerry, or not, but okay. You're right. Okay. Any business arising from the minutes? Councillor Hunter. Unmute.
Yeah, page 19 of the agenda is the RDA funding. There's a small typo there to be fixed up. It talks about from 1st of July 2020 on the basic of the following, so it should be the basis, I suppose. Really minor. My question, though, really relates to the formation of the KPIs. So we've given authorisation to the Mayor and the CEO to execute all the documents, but there are those 3 dot points, the key one being the formation of the KPIs. I just wonder what process we're thinking in terms of how we'll form those up and get agreement prior to a sign-off.
Obviously, I'll declare an interest on that one in my own right anyway. Haven't looked at it at all yet. However, what we did before the last agreement was that we had standard clauses for respective councils. Otherwise, we're going to be working with 8 councils and having even 4 KPIs, individual KPIs for each council. There's 32 KPIs, and there's no way that we can do that and still function correctly. So we'll certainly be getting back to councils to let them know what KPIs are, or if we can get KPIs from council, what they need to do. But I would be tending to say that you'd only be looking at 2 or 3 KPIs. Peter?
Yeah, and that's fine. I understand the complexities of that. It's just that we'd be able to perhaps see those before a sign-off or have a discussion about those prior to a sign-off would be really useful. That's all. Yep,
no, duly noted. Anybody else got anything else, business arising from those minutes? That's a no. Questions with notice. Neil, questions? Sorry. Oh, sorry, yes. Right, confirmation of the special council meeting held on the 14th of April. Someone prepared to move that they be received. Councillor Hunter, Councillor Howie. All right. All those in favour? That's carried, thank you. Anybody got any business arising from those minutes? I'll take that as a no. Questions with notice are nil. Questions without notice. Has anybody got any questions without notice? Notice of motions are nil. Reports and recommendations of committee. We need to receive the minutes of the Riverland Regional Assessment Panel. Minutes of the meeting held on the 19th of March. Someone prepared to move that we receive those minutes. Councillor Sims, Councillor Spano. All those in favour? That's carried. Okay, elected members' monthly activities. Someone prepared to move that they be received? Councillor Maddox, Councillor Daru. All those in favour? Margaret, are you voting or not? All those in favour? That's carried, thank you. Anybody got any questions in relation to the members' reports? Okay, late reports. We have, what have we got? Two late reports, haven't we? Sorry, what was that on? Drew? Okay, we've got 3 late reports, and that is the confidential report, 21.3.1, the waiving of food premises 17.5, and the drought communities programs 15.2. Someone prepared to, has everybody got them? First of all, if you can do a show of hands, you've all got them. Right, so can I have a motion to receive those reports? Councillor Howie's moving it. Have I got a seconder? No, sorry. Okay, Councillor Howie.
I just want to make a comment that the last one, the drought community one, was only given to us 2 hours before our informal meeting. And according to section 83.4 of the Local Government Act, we're supposed to have a certain amount of time to be able to digest it. And also, I don't think 2 hours has given us enough time to do that or have other suggestions or do any research with something that's quite important with $167,000.
Sent out at 2:16, and special meetings are 4 hours, and we have notices without motions without notice. So I can appreciate what you're saying, but I would have thought it's pretty reasonably straightforward. So what I'll do is take the motion to receive the late reports. If you want to put up an amendment to not to exclude that one, then I'll accept that as well. So that they were emailed out. Yep.
2 hours. 2 hours we received. Only 2 hours notice for the last one. The other ones we had a day. And according to the Act, you have to have reasonable time for people to be able to read it. And it's only 2 hours. There's no opportunity to do any research or have other ideas rather than spend $167,000 on the curbing.
The last report was sent out at 2:16 p.m. The email.
I received mine at 3:35 on the email.
Well, I can't do much about that one, I don't think. What I'll do is I'll call for a motion to receive the late reports, and if you want to put an amendment up, I'll look at that as well. Is someone prepared to move that we receive the late reports? Councillor Sims moving it. Councillor Spano is seconding it. Councillor Sims and Councillor Spano. Okay, you want to do an amendment, Margaret? Councillor.
Yeah, I'll amend it that we don't receive the 15.2 report.
Okay, so Councillor Howie is moving that we don't receive 15.2. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Hunter.
May I speak to that?
Yeah, just hang on. You got that all right? Okay, Councillor Hunter.
Yeah, I respect that there's times that things need to be put through, so I'd be good to hear from the CEO read the need for the timeliness, if you like, with this one. But my comment relates to the issuing of some of these things electronically. They might have been sent at 2:15, doesn't mean they've been received. And certainly one of those 3 took quite a while for a number of us to get available on Docs on tap, even though that was sent much earlier. So I think there's an electronic thing here for us to consider too into the future. I don't think it should necessarily impact now, but I do think because it's sent at 2:15 doesn't necessarily mean that's when we got it. So just flag that as a potential future thing for us to take on deck. Thank you.
Yep, no, prepared to acknowledge that. Tony, would you like to comment on the on 15.2?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and look, I do apologise for the lateness of the report. Look, I suppose we're very keen to get our drought communities projects signed off so that we can commence them. I spent a considerable amount of time on the phone to the funding body today, trying to essentially find a project that council is already committed to, which it is committed in your annual business plan, that does meet their guidelines and effectively lines up with the amount that we're taking out with the 2 projects that we're recommending that we don't proceed with. So these are projects that this is a project that you've already told the community that you will do. And the feedback is it does meet the guidelines. So essentially you are switching that in and not making any change to your business plan.
Yeah, we're not losing the other 2. They're going to be brought in the budget anyway. So all you're doing is making sure that we're going to have that curbing project for 18th and 19th Street. Obviously, it's going to be local contractors that are going to be able to do that work. And I tend to think some of the local contractors are really struggling because the work has not been available. And I can't see it being a significant issue. Councillor Howie?
Can I ask the CEO whether it was in the IMAP, is that correct, where for the 2021 year, or was it in a further on?
The curbing project that we've suggested, Councillor Howie?
Yes, Tony.
18th and 19th Street.
Yep, that is in your current business plan, and that's essentially why we've selected it, because you have already supported the project. Essentially, you're just not going to fund it out of general revenue. It's going to be funded by the Drought Communities Program. Now, whether the 2 projects that we've removed you want to fund out of general revenue, that will be up to you when you consider that report.
Councillor Howie?
So is that the work that's already started to be done on 18th Street?
That is some of the curbing work, yes.
Councillor Hunter?
My issue relates more to the business support, which to me seems an ideal drought strategy for us to be supporting businesses to grow and improve and the rest of it. I gather it's not seen as important, or as because it wasn't in the previous or the current business plan, as opposed to anything else, because it would certainly look, and is, in my thinking at least, a much better drought support thing than a curb.
Through the chair, completely agree, but doesn't meet the guidelines, unfortunately. We're quite disappointed that neither of those projects meet the guidelines, but essentially that's the feedback we've got, is that they won't be supported.
It's out of our hands, Councillor Hunter. I mean, as Tony explained first up, that it's not acceptable to a federal government. That's where the funding is coming from. Councillor Hunter.
Yeah, except understand, I still think it needs to be raised, and not just for the pioneers' benefit, but for all of us, when the community say, how is fixing a curb really supporting people through drought? For us to be able to say, well, look, we tried to put this up, we tried to support business, we tried to support that, but we weren't able to because of the criteria. If we're already really clear about that, I think it's important.
Well, I'm quite confident that the CEO will be talking about that to ABC and the Murray Pioneer when he does his publicity for this council meeting tomorrow or the next day. Okay, I've got an amendment first. So I'll put the amendment, which is that we receive the late reports excluding 15.2, which is the Drought Communities Program. So all those in favour of supporting that, not receiving that late report, all those in favour, please raise their hand. So that's 2 against. All right, that amendment is lost. All right. I'll now put the motion. All those in favour? Can't see Councillor Sim. Keep your hands up, please. I can't see your hand, Councillor Sim.
I'm not putting my hand up.
Well, you've got to vote. You're in a meeting. You've got to vote.
But I wanted to amend to the other projects that were coming to mind as well instead of the curbing.
Okay. You've got the option to have another amendment, so I'll ask what your amendment would be.
So instead of the curbing, I was just looking at Lyric cemetery improvements, 66,000. Pringa Football Club kitchen renewal, 25,000 for that as well. So that's up to 91,000. I think it'd be more benefit to the community as of this time rather than the curbs or the curb.
I believe they're still in the budget anyway, so I'll hand over to Tony.
Yeah, so through the chair, Mr. Mayor, I think you're voting on whether you received my late report or the 3 late reports or not. You are correct in what you've just said though. Those projects are in the budget. So really what we're trying to do is select a project that will meet the Drought Communities Program guidelines, and that project is a curbing project. So whether it's funded from general revenue or from that is really irrelevant.
Right, what do you want to do, Councillor Simali? Do you want to move a further amendment or not?
No.
Okay. I'll put the original motion again. All those in favour? This is where we received the 3 reports. Against? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, CEO's report, 15.1, Tony.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is the second notice that's been produced in relation to COVID-19. So the public access and public consultation notice number 2 of 2020. So this essentially deals with the closure of our principal office, which we had previously closed on the 23rd of March using the Work Health Safety Act. And I suppose this is really endorsing that decision that we'd made previously. It's the alternative arrangements that we're making for people to access information from council, given our office is closed, and also inserting some changes to our public consultation policy, essentially because we cannot undertake face-to-face consultation at the moment. So the draft policy has the marked up changes that have been drafted by Norman Waterhouse, and the recommendation is on page 38, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Yes, I've got that. Questions of the CEO? Can I just suggest to keep it in consistency that we have done before, is that the coronavirus stuff is in red right at the start.
Yep, no issues, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any questions of the CEO? Right, I'll put the recommendation as listed on page 38. All those in favour? Oh, sorry, Councillor Hunter.
In the page 58, the pages of the Gazette talk about Housing Improvement Act and Rent Control Relocations and Mental Health Act and Mining Act. Was that just an oversight that we had a few extra pages, or is there some relevance or crossover there?
It's just a crossover with picking up the Local Government Act on the bottom of page 58, which continues on to the top of page 59. That was just the person that photocopied them. Just, yeah, I mean, you could have cut them out and just had them put them together, but yeah. So it's just a carryover. Okay, do we get a mover in a second? Right. Looking for a mover for that recommendation of the CEO's report 15.1. Councillor Howie, are you moving it? Yes. Councillor Spano is seconding it. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Right. 15.2, the Drought Communities Program. Councillor Tony.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. As we have sort of discussed already to some degree, the 2 projects that we put up, the Water Stewardship Alliance and the Community Business Confidence Initiatives, do not meet the Drought Communities Program extension guidelines, which is disappointing. However, we do need to find another project that comes to roughly the same value that does meet the guidelines, which is our curbing project. So I'm recommending that you allow me to submit that. And also, I'm just suggesting that you authorise myself to bring forward any of our Drought Communities programs that can be delivered by local contractors, taking into account the current social distancing restrictions. I know originally when we put this report up, we talked about not starting until 1 July. However, we do have local contractors that are struggling. They are looking for work, and a lot of these projects do utilise local contractors, which won't have to worry about social distancing restrictions in terms of earth moving contractors and the like. So I think if we can get these projects signed off quickly, then we can get them tendered and get local contractors out there working on these projects. I just included in my recommendation that you may want to consider funding out of general revenue one or both of those projects to some degree. We did have a lot of conversation with the Remark-Paringa Business Network about the business confidence initiatives. Initially, they asked for $50,000. We increased it to $70,000. I think given the effect on our retail industry since COVID-19 has started, council should strongly consider this project. I think with some of the other measures that we're putting up for council to consider tonight, that this would sit really nicely with that. Yeah, something else to consider. Thanks, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, question of Tony. Councillor Howie.
I fully support the community business confidence, and even if there's extra, I don't support the Alliance of the Water Stewardship. I think at this point in time, spending $84,000, considering that council's also looking at rate relief and a lot of other things to help the community, not just the business community, but the whole community. I think that at this point in time, I would like to recommend that we do what we can, even on this budget, for the community business confidence, but leave the Alliance for Water Stewardship to the when we review the 2021 budget, and that's, I'm happy to move it that way.
I'll just hang on. I'll ask for comments first. Any other comments? Tim, Pfeiffer, Jerry.
Yeah, look, just one thought in regards to the water stewardship, and I haven't discussed this with the CEO, but look, we were effectively, with the drought money, we're planning on prepaying a couple of years worth of a program. So we could, I mean, if there was still commitment towards the stewardship program, then water stewardship program, then there's the possibility to just fund the first year of that 3-year program potentially.
Okay, any other comments to Tony? Councillor Drew.
Thanks, Tim, for that. So just break that down in cost-wise. Have you got that handy? If you do it over a 3-year program, otherwise I agree with what Margaret's saying, and possibly we could defer that program till next financial year. But it'd be nice to know what the breakdown is if you break it into over a period of 3 years.
Tony.
Yeah, look through the chair. I think it was roughly $40,000 initially. I suppose the only comment I'd make is that you are committed once you do start the project. And look, there may be other options for the water stewardship project in terms of drought funding that we could explore. So look, you will be committed to the $84,000 if you take up the program, because you have to audit it afterwards. But you may want us to look at some other options for you to consider if you do want to look at that project in the future.
Councillor Hunter.
Yeah, I'm a strong supporter of this one, as you all know from the last meeting, but I accept what Councillor Howe is saying in terms of the current climate and all the rest of it. I'd be keen to explore what other options exist, whether it be grant funding or splitting it across 3 years. But I think this is a real futures thing which will benefit us and the community long term. But I accept that we need to deal with the short-term priorities first. I just hope it's not lost, and that link with ROT lost because of the amount and the discussions that are happening here. I think it's a really beneficial thing for us long term.
Councillor Giroux, did you want to finish off? Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I agree with both Margaret and Peter. I think it's a really important project, long term and in the future. But a lot of what Tony's saying, it'd be nice to explore some other avenues around it. If there is other funding available, that'd be terrific. And if we can defer that part of the motion until we have some more information, possibly, and more options around how that could be funded down the track. I don't see it as being an essential decision we have to make tonight about the water stewardship. I think that can be put off another month while there's other avenues explored. Thanks.
Okay, Councillor Howe, is there any other comments? Councillor Howe, were you moving that recommendation subject to taking out the Alliance for Water Stewardship certification of $84,000?
Yes, I am. I just would like to just get the general feel from the rest of the council members, whether 70, we leave it at 70 or just leave it at 70 and maybe have something in there and other, to do with the response to the situation here at the moment. Thanks, Peter.
I would suggest that we just leave that section out, and there'll be another vote later on to decide what you want to do with the Alliance for Water Stewardship certification.
Okay, I'll move it there. Just leave the Alliance Water out and leave it at 70,000.
Hunter, were you seconding it, or you want a question? Councillor Hunter?
So is Councillor Howie including the curbing 18th, 19th Street and cutting off any discussion about other options, or why the things that Councillor Singh-Marley raised were excluded? Or I'm not sure of your intent there, Margaret, or whether we can have a bit of a discussion about some of those other things which have been dropped out. Why 18th, 19th Street gets the Guernsey. I'd be keen to hear a bit more about that.
Councillor, I've taken Councillor Howie's moving that full recommendation there. If you want to discuss that, we can discuss that later.
I think that the CEO actually explained why we're doing that, because it meets it. Whether the Paringa, if they're not covering, and this is my thoughts, if they're not covering the community business confidence, would they cover the kitchen out at the Paringa Football Club, or would they cover the cemetery? I think that our CEO had already sort of given that, but I'd like Tony to answer, if Tony can respond to Peter's question again.
Yeah.
Tony?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yep. So the conversation we had this afternoon was essentially throwing up some projects that would meet the guidelines. And if you go and look at the guidelines, they do talk about playgrounds, solar panels, curbing, drainage, these types of projects. I know they probably don't really fit the community benefit side of things, but they're more infrastructure related and being giving council the ability to create local employment, which is what it's essentially going to do. So, I mean, look, you could defer it and we could go back and speak to them about a whole heap of different other projects, but this one fits fairly nicely in terms of the amount of the budget. It gives us the opportunity to get our $1 million signed away and essentially go out and start undertaking the tender process so we can get some of these projects that we know local contractors can deliver off the ground.
Basically, you're not going to lose anything. All those other two projects are staying within the budget. And remembering this financial year's only got 2 months to go, May and June. So they're not too far away. Councillor Spino.
Yeah, I agree that the Lyra and the Paringa Football Club, I think they should be, as long as we say, okay, they're in the budget, but then we don't defer them later like we have things, I just think that sometimes we say that it's going to happen and it isn't. So I'm happy if those two things are going to be done.
Yeah, as I mentioned, they're clearly in the budget, so they will be carried over if they're not done this financial year. Councillor Singh Mali?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The only reason I brought up those items was because I just got the feeling that more things will come up and we're just going to keep on deferring some of these items. And I just thought it was a good opportunity to bring them up. But then he said the curbside, that development, the guidelines well. So just wanted to kind of explain why I brought up those two items before.
Okay. Councillor Sims, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, thanks, Neil. I just want to make sure that this discussion is not about what we are going to do and what we're not going to do. This discussion is about the bucket of money for the drought funding, what was project we're going to spend that money on. So we're not going to do anything. We're just making sure we spend that $4 million on stuff that meets the criteria.
I've tried.
And that's what it's all about.
I try, in various ways, I've tried to say that, David, the Councillor Sims. Okay, so we've got a mover. Okay, so I had a mover in Councillor Howie that recommendation be approved subject to not putting in the Alliance for Water Stewardship. I need a seconder. Was that Councillor Bano, was it? No? Councillor Daru, you're seconding it? Okay. Any other comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? That's carried. Very good. Thank you. Okay, that's all from you, Tony.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Very good. Okay, handing over to Director of Corporate and Community Services, hardship measures associated with COVID-19. Over to you, Jerry.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I can just speak through this one briefly. So what you have in front of you is a couple of recommendations. So first and foremost, we've created a new rates hardship policy. So we do have a hardship policy as it stands at the moment, but that's specifically in relation to our retail services, being water and wastewater services. Now that's been required by the Essential Services Commission for quite some time. So this is specifically a rates hardship policy, which we haven't actually had before. So this is very, very similar to what a lot of other councils are doing at the moment. For those who don't actually have one at the moment, they are creating rates hardship policies along similar lines. You'll see at the back end of this rates hardship policy, we've also included specific provisions related to COVID-19. Now, the Mayor has asked me whether I can, so that's the section in red. The Mayor has previously asked me whether I can move that section in red up to the front of the policy, which I will do, just to keep it consistent with all the other policies that we've amended in relation to COVID-19 just lately. So that will occur. What you'll also notice in there is that we're recommending a very short review time. So to bring back for council to review in 3 months' time. Reason being is, you know, we're managing, in terms of COVID-19, we're managing almost day to day, week to week at the moment. We don't know the situation that we'll be in 3 months' time. What this policy, and specifically what the COVID-19 elements of this policy allow for, is for rates deferral for a 3-month period without fines and interest for anyone who is directly affected by COVID-19 and especially their income affected by COVID-19. So that will be on application through to council, which is the typical way of doing hardship policies. You'll also notice in there as well, we're recommending the waiving. Sorry, I'm looking up all the time because I've got it on the screen above here. We're recommending the waiving of fines and interest in relation to rates accrued between the 1st of April and 30th of June for the final quarter of 2020. Now that measure will cost council between $12,000 and $15,000 worth of revenue, but we think at this present time it's probably well worth it to just take that little bit of pressure off of ratepayers. What we're also recommending is the waiving of lease and licence fees for community and sporting organisations from the 1st of April to the 30th of June for that final quarter as well. That will cost us around about $30,000, but it will mean that the likes of, you know, the small football clubs and the small community organisations out there will will not have to pay lease and license fees for this next quarter ahead of us. Obviously, a lot of these smaller clubs and organisations, they rely on being able to run those facilities to be able to generate revenue, to be able to pay the likes of leases and licenses. So we think that's fair and reasonable. Point 4, we're recommending that the administration consider relief measures for other lease and licence holders from the 1st of April to the 30th of June on a case-by-case basis. We do have a couple of commercial leases, commercial buildings that we lease out, and we feel that should be done more on a case-by-case basis rather than, the likes of Westpac, for example. We don't necessarily think we should be providing a blanket rule for all commercial businesses at this point, but we will manage that on a case-by-case basis. And finally, the final measure that we're recommending is that council's payment terms be reduced from 30 days to 14 days. Reality is we're actually very, very good with paying our creditors as it is. We're usually around the 1 week kind of mark, but it at least formalises it that we will do it within 14 days. Mr. Mayor, I feel I should probably, a couple of other things I should just point out is that we feel at the moment as an administration that this is trying to, what we're trying to do is balance genuine relief for those who are directly affected through loss of income with the ability to actually to be able to continue ongoing business at the council. Council is not eligible for any JobKeeper benefits or any other financial benefits from state or federal government. We're not eligible for anything at all. We therefore need to make sure that we do maintain a level of cash flow. We have been told by the state government particularly that local government is expected to continue operating as fully as possible. So we do therefore need to maintain a level of cash flow to be able to enable that to occur. I've also referenced in the report there the SACES report. Now that's the South Australian Centre for Economic Studies. They have been recommissioned by the LGA to provide an update in regards to how local government provides economic stimulus, specifically in relation to the current situation that we're facing. The SACES report hasn't been made publicly available yet, but we expect that it will do soon. What it has suggested is that reviewing hardship policies is one of the first and foremost things that local government should be doing right now. We've actually developed our hardship policy, and they've also noted that the widespread forbearance of rates is only really sustainable with state or federal government assistance. It's not something that is sustainable for local government in the longer term, whether that be sort of 3, 6, 9, 12 months, without assistance from state or feds. So I commend the report to council. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Jerry. There's a couple of things in there. You mentioned about the payment terms, and I've already mentioned it to the executive about only having our creditors be paid within 14 days, and after the 30th of June, when this is reviewed, I'll be suggesting that to council that, especially for small business, they are struggling regardless of whether it's COVID or not, and that we should be paying our creditors, our small business creditors. We should be paying them in a 14-day period anyway. Has the senior executive discussed the possibility of suspending the fourth quarterly payment until the 30th September this year?
So to clarify, so fourth quarter, what we've suggested within the rates hardship policy and the COVID-19 provisions is that fourth quarter, effective, so between 1st of April and 30 June, that fourth quarter rates for anyone who is directly affected by COVID-19 and who qualifies for hardship policy, which is a fairly generous policy in that regard, is eligible to defer rates payment. Okay, and on page 67 of the agenda, number 1, under ordinary provisions, COVID-19, it talks about under the application of a ratepayer that has become underemployed and is receiving a payment from the government as a result of COVID-19. That includes the job seeker payments. I'm sorry, can you just repeat the page reference there, Mr. Mayor?
67 of the agenda. Isn't it really good to be able to go to one specific page, everybody? Just thought I'd mention that. So under extraordinary provisions, the big last paragraph,
Yes.
payment from the government. So we're clarifying that it can be a job seeker payment.
Yes. Well, look, I've deliberately kept that open-ended because, look, we don't know exactly what, I mean, yes, it is called job seeker now. We don't know whether that will continue to be called that in the long-term future or not. In fairness as well, I think we drafted the policy by the time after that already named what they were going to call it. So I think the way that it's worded is deliberately left open so that it absolutely does include that.
Okay, and the other thing is, I mentioned yesterday at our exec meeting about the actual application for people to come into council. We need to make it very sympathetic we don't want a 5-page document for people to have to go through. We only need to look at a 1-page document where people can either tick a box and show authorisation or a proof that they've actually applied for government benefits or whatever, so we show a bit of empathy and sympathy towards people that have to go through this process. We don't want them to have to be coming in and showing their bank statements and all that stuff to show that I ain't got any money. We need to make sure that we do it in a fair and even way.
Absolutely, and look, in the next 48 hours or so, we can forward around a copy of a draft form for residents and ratepayers to apply through that. We can forward that through to council just for noting.
Okay, any questions of Jerry? Councillor Howie?
I just was the question. So the people who were unemployed before COVID-19 are now receiving the job seeker fund. Are they still eligible even though they haven't lost a job?
Yes, so within the actual, so that's more within the body of the rates hardship policy, excluding the extraordinary part regarding COVID-19. So what this provides this is a brand new rates hardship policy. It is a new policy to deal with rates hardship on an ongoing basis. The intention is, as soon as we're out of pandemic phase of COVID-19, we can go back and review this particular hardship policy and strip the COVID-19 part out, and you still have a fully fleshed out, fully fledged rates hardship policy that deals with all situations, including regular unemployment.
What I'm asking is that if you're already unemployed and COVID-19 hasn't had any effect on your circumstances, why should they get hardship rate relief?
Yeah, look, it is a fair point, but I think I can't recall the exact numbers, but I think around about 60% of councils around the state already have a rates hardship policy that does actually account for that situation. You know, if people are unemployed, or if they are experiencing genuine hardship, not necessarily due to unemployment, but if they are experiencing genuine hardship on an ongoing basis, completely unrelated to COVID-19, then it is incumbent on us to show a little bit of empathy in that regard. And, you know, in most cases, and hopefully it is a temporary hardship, that, you know, by putting someone on a payment plan where they can pay their, you know, $50 a fortnight, possibly, that may get them to the point where they can defer rates for a short period of time, or else, you know, reduce the immediate amount that they have to pay back on a fortnightly basis to get them through.
They're not actually not paying rates at all, Councillor Howie. It's just being deferred, that's all.
It's just a deferral, that's right, absolutely.
Okay, Councillor Townsend.
Just in regards to that first paragraph as well, so does that mean that only people who receive a government payment are eligible for that? Or someone who's on reduced hours or something like that still not receiving that government payment but earning less, would that still include them? Or just because it says unemployed, underemployed and is receiving a payment from the government?
Well, the word underemployed to me, if anybody's had wages reduced, and that would cover them as well.
Yeah, but then it's saying and. So does that mean or does that just mean that they include those and don't have to be all three?
Gary?
Yeah, look, I think in most cases it would cover it. If you refer down to, if you refer down to point 3, so you've got point 1 was the one you referred to, Councillor Townsend. If you refer down to point 3 under application of a ratepayer who may not qualify for government assistance, and on provision of reasonable evidence to the CEO can provide the option to defer rate. I think that probably covers it. However, as I say, we will be bringing this back for review in 3 months' time. Just because, of course, we don't know the situation that we'll be in at that point. We don't know. I mean, maybe everything is returning pretty much back to normal and we can strip it out at that point and everything's good. Maybe we need to keep it going for another 3 months at that point. So we can then also, if we come across situations that haven't necessarily been explicitly covered, perfectly within the policy, we can tweak it at that point.
Yeah.
Page 66 of the agenda also talks about rights of customers experiencing financial hardship. So that covers other things, Councillor Townsend.
Yep, no worries.
Councillor Hunter?
Just some clarity, if we can, in terms of business ratepayers. It doesn't seem to specifically mention them, but it does talk about customers. So some clarity as to how a small business might be covered in a separate policy or within this, apart from the 13 days down to 14 and the couple that might have commercial leases. Have we got any hardship policies in relation to commercial?
And again, I'd probably refer to the point 3 under the extraordinary provisions of COVID-19 there. So again, and that deals with specifically, we're saying a ratepayer, not necessarily a residential ratepayer, who may not qualify for government assistance, and upon provision of the reasonable evidence to the CEO, can therefore defer rates. Again, I think that probably covers it. Happy to sharpen it up if we need to, though.
Councillor Hunter?
I think that would be a useful thing to show that we are considering the small businesses out there that may have pretty significant difficulties at the moment. It doesn't lend easily that they are inclusive of our commercial businesses.
Yeah, the intent is definitely that they are included in that, which is the reason for using the word ratepayer as opposed to resident. However, yeah, I note that it's not explicitly saying that this includes businesses as well, but that is the intent.
You've got to remember a lot of small businesses may be leasing properties from substantial landowners. So they're not necessarily the ratepayer, although the person who's leasing the property will be passing on the rates to that individual person. Okay. You finished, Councillor Hunter?
So just to finish off, could that be more clearly defined?
Sorry, just give me a moment.
Just a second.
I mean, possibly back up in the definitions on page 63. I mean, we can flesh that out a little bit further in regard to the definition of what a customer is. All we've said is a customer means either a customer or a ratepayer. We can say, I'm happy to include that as an amendment that, either a residential or business ratepayer, or words to that effect.
Thank you.
Well, I would have thought that a ratepayer is a ratepayer paying rates, whereas a customer would be your small business person that's leasing a property from a ratepayer. I mean, you could accept them as being that.
Through you, Your Worship, that is the intent, but I think I'm happy to flesh it out further.
Okay, Councillor Howie.
Just a question. So if I am renting a premises, like as a shop owner, I didn't think that you actually pay the rates. I think that you have a rent, you pay an amount that is a rent, but I didn't think that you actually paid the rates. That's, I know you pay for the electricity, but I don't believe that you pay for your rates. But I'd like to be corrected if I'm wrong.
That's my understanding. Sorry, through you, Your Worship. That is my understanding that it is.
You don't pay the rates specifically to council as the tenant. You're paying for the rates in part of your rent. They've got a proportion part of that rates into the rent. So in essence, you are paying rates. Jerry?
Yeah, look, that is probably more of a matter between the tenant and the landlord, as opposed to being between the tenant of the landlord and council, because you're not directly. Look, I mean, as a resident here at the moment, I am a resident of Renmark Warringah. Being a fairly newcomer here, I don't own a property here. I rent a property. I don't pay rates, but I do through my rent.
Councillor Howie?
I believe that the state government and the federal government have provided some sort of relief to people who are paying rent and have lost a certain amount, like 50% of their business. So I believe there is grants for people. So anyone who's renting a place and are not doing their business has the opportunity, I think, from both the federal and the state government for some rent relief.
That is my understanding through you, and it's also, as I say, that's not directly a matter. That's not directly. We need to be dealing with our ratepayers in regard to this. Like it is directly people who are paying rates, and if they are if a tenant of a landlord is receiving rental assistance or receiving assistance elsewhere, that's good. That's fantastic. And it's also not necessarily the role of council to be stepping in there.
Councillor Spano?
I don't know what I did.
You've turned off your video.
Okay.
You've muted. You've muted.
Yeah, through the chair, Margaret. Vic pays rent to Lefty. He pays the rates as well. So we do pay rates. A business does pay rates.
Councillor Sims?
Can you hear me? Yep.
Yes, got that, Maria. Councillor Spano. Councillor Sims?
Thanks, Neil. Just to follow up from Margaret and you were saying then, Maria, the business, some of the landlords who have business premises who are receiving rent have actually given their renters reduced rates at the moment due to this, because of the downturn in business. Would that be something that then the landowner will then be able to capture and say, "Hey, we've given these discounts to our tenants. Can we get a rate deferment?" Will landowners have that ability to do that under this policy?
The government is providing funds for landlords under that circumstance, Councillor Sims. My understanding. Councillor Hunter?
That's correct.
My intent was simply to be clearer, which this discussion has opened up around that they can be considered, not getting into the detail about what their lease arrangements or payment arrangements are. But if you pay rates because you own your business and your own property, then it can be considered. That's all I was trying to raise, for some clarity.
Well, by leaving the word customer, it leaves it up to the CEO's delegated officer to pick up on that, I would have thought. Tony? Tony?
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to highlight that while we are endorsing a rates hardship policy tonight, we have always encouraged people to come and talk to us if they've experienced financial hardship. It's in our annual business plan every year that people can come and have a confidential discussion and postpone their rates. So not a lot's changed there. We've just formalised it in a policy. And also under the Act, seniors have for some time have had the ability to postpone their rates as well. So there's mechanisms for us that we've used in the past. I suppose this is just extending it, given the exceptional circumstances.
Councillor Hunter? Councillor Hunter?
No, I didn't have anything else to add, just that that we just need to be really clear who can and who can't apply. It's nice for staff to be able to interpret, but people read the policy to know if they should apply or not. I think it needs to be clear for them.
Well, as Tony mentioned, council is already providing a lot of stuff for people with hardship, and all this is doing is formalising and putting on paper, and if it needs to be tweaked later on, then we tweak it. And as I said, council needs to have sympathy in relation to anybody that wants to come in, which they have been doing in the past. And yeah, we haven't got a motion, have we? Okay, any other discussion? Now there is an alteration there to number part 1. Part 1 will now read, the new rates hardship policy with specific provisions related to COVID-19, noting that the policy will be reviewed in July 2020. Jerry has asked to put that in there after the document went out. So after COVID-19 on number 1, noting that the policy will be reviewed in July 2020. Is someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Howie? Councillor Maddox? All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Sorry? Right. Okay. Over to you, Tim, Director of Infrastructure and Environmental Services report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the first report is just pertaining to our animal management fees. And we're just looking to, we're recommending that council set those fees at the same amounts as they are in the current financial year.
Councillor Spano?
I would like to change that if I can. I mean, I know that other people have got to talk on it as well, but I would like to see the penalty for late registrations taken out. With hardship going on, they mightn't have the money straight up or whatever. And I would also, I'll probably get run down for this, but I'd like to see $5 taken off all of the registration fees because of the hardship we're going through.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Howie?
Just a question, what is a non-standard dog?
One that hasn't been desexed and all the other things, I think, isn't it?
That's correct. Yep.
A dog that hasn't been desexed, hasn't got training, and has not got a microchip. Did you get that, Councillor Howie?
Thank you.
Councillor Simms, did you wave at me? Yes, Councillor Simms.
Noted what Maria said. I would like to move the recommendation that we keep the fees the same.
Okay, Councillor Singh Mali, are you seconding it? No.
I didn't hear properly the second part that Maria mentioned. If she could say that, or if you could just remind me.
Yeah, I just said the penalty, the late registration should be taken out. $20 late registration fee because of the hardship people are going through. They mightn't have the money like straight away, and they can still pay it like your rates are being deferred. But I'd like to see that taken out, and I'd like to have $5 taken off all the others, not the same, just for this 12 months of what we're going through.
I wouldn't like to see that penalty for late registration taken out altogether. To me, there'd be utter chaos in the streets because you could defer it, and if they come in for hardship, they come into council and apply for hardship on that particular issue. But nobody will register their dog if you don't have a late payment fee. and it'll be a hell of a mess, I reckon, for the next 12 months after that. Just my comments.
With the fees now and what people are going through, they might just let their dogs go. They might, do you know what I'm saying? They might say, well, I haven't got the money to register it, so I'm not going to. And what happens then?
Right. Well, then we're going to have a lot more costs involved in dogs, and therefore your fees will have to go up, because the dog fees are paying for dogs entirely. They don't. Anything with relation to dogs doesn't come out of rate revenue. It comes out of the fees and charges that we set. Okay, I've got Councillor Simmons moving the recommendation. Have I got a seconder? Councillor Drew. Any other comments or any amendments? Okay, I put the motion. Councillor Hunter.
Just a quick question to staff, I guess. In terms of the number that we would have, the penalty for late registration, is that 1 or 2 or 52? How big is the issue?
To be quite honest, Councillor Hunter, I'm not completely sure how many we have that aren't registered on time. I'd have to take that on notice.
Okay, Councillor now. Okay, no other comments? I've got a motion on the recommendation. All those in favour? Against? Right, that's carried. Thank you. That was 6-2, I think, just for your information, but I won't be recording that in a minute. Okay, 17.2. Tim, unmute. Tim, unmute.
Apologies. Okay, so as elected members would be aware, we lodged a submission for round 2 of the Office and Sport and Rec Grassroots sporting facilities grants. Unfortunately, we were unsuccessful, but they have opened a round 3 at the start of this month, which closes on Thursday, and we're just seeking council's endorsement to submit another application in that next round of funding.
All right, thanks, Tim. The only thing I would bring up, and it doesn't need to be part of the recommendation, that council should look at borrowing that council contribution of 180,000. We look at borrowing that money and pay it over a 5 or 7 year period instead of coming out of rate revenue to assist council with its operating expenses. Okay. Any questions of Tim? Someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Drew is moving it? No, you got a question?
Just had a quick comment around that. I agree with what you're saying there about borrowing the money, Neil, especially while the rates are like they are. But also, I know we discussed this earlier, whether it be one of those projects that stays in or out over the next period. I actually think it's really important that it does stay in, and I'd really support going for another grant there, because it's obviously our sporting community is a huge part of the our persona in the Riverland. So, you know, the better facilities we can create, and it might create opportunities for other events to come to Renmark if we've got superior facilities. So I'd be totally in support of it.
So am I saying that you're moving it?
I'm happy to move it.
Right, we've got a seconder, Councillor Singh Mali, seconding it. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, Argo Barge, Tim.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I guess this one is just more of an administration resolution we're seeking, because we failed to get council to give yourself and the CEO delegation to affix a common seal to our agreement with Olivewood. So we're just seeking that recommendation or resolution tonight.
Okay, that's only a formality. Someone prepared to move the recommendation? Councillor Drew, Councillor Hunter, all those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Now, 17.4.
Yep. So, as elected members would remember, last meeting we had a resolution to seek some costings to finalise the path at the Bookmark Creek Bridge. So we've liaised with DIPTI and got some indicative costs at this stage. So I guess there's two options that we've looked at. One is to seal and I guess improve the current footpath, which that indicative cost at this stage is 70,000, and there's also the cost to potentially construct a footbridge, which at this stage the indicative cost is 370,000. I guess the recommendation is to support the construction of the footpath to complete that pedestrian access, and that would be able to be done within the current budget of 100,000 that is in our business plan at the moment.
I don't really support the recommendation. The fact that I think we can do some more. Back on the 6th of March and the 1st of April, Mr. McCormick, the Deputy Prime Minister, sent a letter to Council in relation to Feds offer Council stimulus cash. And I think with there's bicycle grants out there that we should look at to try and justify our $100,000 to try and see if we can leverage that on some other funding to make sure that we get the bridge done properly. At the moment, if we go and just bitumise the work, we're going to have the bitumen track going down onto the floodplain of the Salt Creek area and then back up again. That's across the section where you have the base of the old former railway bridge. And I think, yeah, we should be trying to do a bit more to utilise that $100,000 to try and get a proper bike track at the same level all the way across. That's just my thoughts. Councillor Howie?
I totally agree. I don't think that we should just be spending $70,000 on a bitumised path that hardly anyone uses, because if you walk it, it's not very good anyway. And my question is, DIPTI, is that how you pronounce it? There was a footpath, or sort of a footpath, across the bridge before they extended it, and at the Kingston one, which they did at the same time, they created a pedestrian / bike path across the Kingston Bridge. My personal opinion is that I think that they are responsible to finish the bridge, and I think that we should be making some strong noises that they should provide a safe pedestrian crossing. It's not our responsibility. Any bridge, all bridges have a pedestrian crossing of some sort, and they've left us with half of one.
Yes, I totally agree with you. A bridge, it's the footpath to nowhere. Although DIPTI were involved in the contracting to doing the work, it's a federal government issue, and that's where the money was originally come from. So that's the area that we should tackle. And I've got waiting on a phone call back from Tony Passon to see whether we can. I want him to come up and have a look at it so that he knows exactly what's going on. He did promise to come up several months ago when he was going to be up in the area, but he didn't get here. So I want to follow that through. But yeah, I think we need to do some more work on it.
Yeah, I'd like to move a motion, if possible, that we do more research or lobbying for the federal government to finish the bridge, and or we look at funding.
Okay, I'll just hang on for that motion at the moment. Councillor Maddox.
Sorry, now I'm on it. I think I've taken my camera. Stop.
You're still on. You're okay.
Oh, hang on. No, I'm not.
Yes, you are. We've got you here. I've got you here, and now you're unmuted.
Okay. I just wanted to agree with both yourself and Councillor Howie on that matter. I very strongly feel that DIPTI or the government or whoever, it really needs to be finished.
Thank you, Councillor Maddox. Councillor Hunter?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of other issues here. One of them is that even if we spend the 70,000 the rails at those angled sections and entry and exit points could be quite a bit of money on top of that. So the 70 bitumen, I assume, is just the bitumen path, rails and such separate. And the second bit would be, would it be compliant as a cycleway with the angles that exist, simply bitumised? So it's almost like we'd spend 70 grand and not have a compliant, and only be partway down the track for making it compliant. So it'd be up for more money in the future, but accepting the full total cost of doing anything from the future. So I support the Mayor and Councillor Howie and Councillor Maddox in terms of chasing this one a bit further.
The handrails were mentioned in the report, but we also talked about battering at 1 and 3, and to me that's no way. If you're going to, it's a bicycle track and walkway. There's no way handicap people are going to be able to manipulate that anyway. Councillor Daru.
Thank you, Neil. Yeah, I agree with the general conversation. I think the federal government have got an absolute obligation to provide a safe pedestrian crossing for a federal road, and they've come up pretty short. So I really do think that we need to be pushing the, if it's Tony Passon, that's who it is, but you know, to make sure they finish off their work, because at the moment it's just it's an embarrassment for them, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Spano. Need to take that.
Yeah, I'd like to second what Councillor Howie had said in her motion.
Okay, any other comments? Councillor Tony?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, the situation that we're in is no fault of the director because he was not here at the time, but I think the issue that, probably the fault of council was that we showed too much interest in this project. We should have shown absolutely no interest, but made sure that they had a footpath the same as they have at the Kingston Bridge. So I support what Councillor Howie's saying. It's not good enough. Unfortunately, it's half a job. And I suppose, you know, it's an opportunity for us to push it back and say that we don't want anything less than what's been provided at the Kingston Bridge.
Or what was provided before they took the old bridge out. I mean, it's great in hindsight to talk about different things, but I'm still not happy in the fact that council elected members weren't given enough information right from the start from this project. So it reflects in both areas, but it's great to talk about it in hindsight. Okay, if there's no further comment, I don't see anybody putting their hand up. What about a motion to the fact that council resolves to support the construction of a footpath to complete the Bookmark Creek pedestrian access, that staff conduct further research and lobbying to federal government to grant funding to complete the Bookmark Creek pedestrian access? What's your thoughts on that? Councillor Hunt, Councillor Howie?
I'll move that.
Okay, seconded?
Just got a comment.
Just hang on, Councillor Spano's seconding it. Okay, Councillor Daru?
Just a comment on that. I think it would be good to be able to reference that the works be mirroring what they've already done with the first pedestrian crossing. So I'd like to see it over the old railway bridge and not underneath it. Going underneath, I know, is probably a cheaper option and easier, but if we hopefully one day have another flood, well, then you just wash that footpath away anyway. So to have a really long-lasting and permanent structure, I think it'd be good to have in the wording there that the footpath remains above flood level.
Okay, happy that we can Smith word that to include the words similar to what's been provided at Kingston on Murray Bridge and what was and the access that was provided to pedestrians with the old bridge. So we'll let us Smith word that into that motion. Tim.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two things. One, I was just going to suggest that the word footbridge be used in the recommendation because that would then define it from a footpath.
Yep.
The other thing too is that at this stage, or DIPTI have offered quite some time ago to actually do the detailed design. So what would have been the process had council gone with the recommendation is a more detailed design would have been done, and then that would have been tendered out. So perhaps the recommendation could talk about, that council's supports the footbridge, that it gets the DIPTI go ahead and do the detailed design for that, and then we look at how that might be funded and the like in the future, whether that's through external funding or somehow we can pull some political weight to get DIPTI or the federal government to actually pay for it.
DIPTI were always going to provide those drawings anyway, right from the start. It's my understanding. So yeah, happy to conclude that we eschew DIPTI to provide those drawings for us anyway. Councillor Howie?
I don't think that it's our responsibility to go and get DIPTI. I think it's the federal government's responsibility to get DIPTI to do a thing. I mean, at the moment, the issue is that the federal government pay for that there. It's a federal road. It is their responsibility to put a proper, safe, pedestrian path across the creek. And they haven't done that. And I don't think that us going to DIPTI and then turning to them and saying, well, here's the costing. I think we should go to the federal government. They then go to DIPTI, which is obviously what they've done in the past to get what they've done and get a costing.
Yeah, I agree that we're going to the feds because it's their bridge. DIPTI are only involved in it as far as the construction, but DIPTI did promise right at the start that they would provide the drawings for it. So let's continue on with that. But our main focus will be on the federal government to get the funding to try and come up with something similar to Kingston on Murray, or we have access to what was provided there to us before. Just hang on for a minute. Okay, I still want to Smith word on that recommendation that we've just drafted out. I still want to Smith it with the Kingston on Murray Bridge and what was provided previously. So I won't do it now, otherwise we're going to be here all day. But if someone's prepared to move, I'll read it out again. The council resolves to support the construction of a footpath and bicycle track to complete the Bookmark Creek pedestrian access. Furthermore, staff conduct further research and lobbying to the federal government for grant funding to complete the Bookmark Creek pedestrian access, and include the words the Kingston on Murray Bridge and what was previously provided. We'll Smith word that. So you're still happy to move that, Councillor Howie? Right, have I got a seconder? Councillor Sparrow, sorry, you didn't do that before. So no, yep. Okay, all those in favour? All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Now, Tim, you have a late report 17.5.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the late report, I guess, aligns somewhat with Tim's reports regarding the hardship policy for rates. Yes, we are looking at, well, I guess we're recommending to council that we waive the inspection fees for our food businesses, and to do that until the 31st of October, especially given that a vast majority of these businesses have had to amend the way they do their business, given that you can only do takeaway food. Could I make one suggestion for the wording of the recommendation, that just to make it clear that the waiving of those fees would be, say, from today, the 28th of April, until the 31st of October 2020, just to make that period on.
Can we, Tim, can we throw the words due to the coronavirus?
Certainly, yep.
Just to clarify, that's why we're doing it. Okay, any comments to Tim? Someone prepared to move the recommendation with the inclusion of the reference to the coronavirus. Councillor Sims is moving it. Councillor Maddox is seconding it. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. You got that? All right, moving on to information reports. Is someone prepared to move the CEO's information report be received? Councillor Townsend, Councillor Giroux. All those in favour? That's carried. Questions of the CEO? Councillor Hunter.
Page 88, you mentioned the rally for the Riverland there. Have you got an update on what's happening with that one? We had that meeting in Berry, and I don't know, I came away not being really sure that we'd actually made some clear decisions about what was most important for the Riverland, and it's kind of in the internet there somewhere. Where are we up to with that one?
Tony?
Did you want to take that, Jerry, or would you like me to?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Look, the project control group met with all 3 CEOs and relevant staff in the last couple of days. So we've had the consultants pulling together what they took out of that meeting. We've seen a draft report literally in the last day or two. We're working with the consultants as of today to sharpen that up a bit. So there will be something coming back to the elected members of all 3 councils in the not too distant future.
Okay. Any other questions? Councillor Hunter?
The riverfront lighting that talks about, I didn't actually get to see that. It was ineffectual. Can someone give me some sort of background around the riverfront lighting that was there, please?
Jerry, I assume?
Yes, yes, I'm happy to take it. Can you just refer to the page number so I know exactly what we've said?
My notes just say Council Resolution Action Report 18.1.2, page 89, and I've got 12.2 next to it. I'm trying to search down for the item number.
It's on page 91.
Thank you, mate.
Page 91.
Yeah, whilst it was a good trial, this is the right-hand side there, it's recommended we don't continue with this in the future as the cost to run the lights is high. The riverfront lighting trial, I didn't see that at all and didn't get any feedback from community either way about it. So it's kind of, to me at least, slipped past. If I can have a bit of summary about what happened or didn't happen, it would be just great.
Yeah, so we did trial it for, I think this was one that sort of sits in between myself and Tim. We did trial it for, I think it was a couple of months there.
Oh.
It was...
Scary.
Look, it was a good trial. However, look, the power cost was quite significant. So we took it through Easter. Then obviously with COVID-19, I mean, this, and without people out and about, there wasn't a huge benefit in continuing it much further. Look, the power cost was quite significant. I don't have the numbers on me right here tonight as to exactly how much power we did use through it, but the power cost was a significant factor in that one. And also, sorry, as it's noted in the report there as well, there was also an impact on those houseboats that were moored there under, is it a 72-hour, 96-hour mooring at the front there? I can't recall from the top of my head, but there was obviously an effect for any houseboats that were moored there overnight as well.
96, I think it was, Jerry.
Yep.
Okay, any other comments of Tony in relation to his information report? If not, page 110, Director of Corporate and Community Service, someone prepared to move that information report be received? Councillor Sinmarley and Councillor Maddox, all those in favour? All those in favour? That's carried. Okay, questions of Jerry? Anything there you want to highlight, Jerry?
Look, nothing. No, look, I don't think there's anything I want to grab out there. Look, I think the interesting one there is our library report. You know, our library has been obviously, even before, as COVID-19 was starting to hit, obviously numbers were dwindling a little bit there. Look, the library has been continuing to kick significant goals, and then even in the last couple of weeks, they've been absolutely smashing it. They've been doing some phenomenal work. I think the real highlights, and it'll probably come out more so in the next quarterly report as opposed to this one. Some of the real highlights, they've re-kicked off the click and collect program as of today, which is quite significant. They were a huge part of the school holiday program with our community development staff as well, which obviously a regular school holiday program is, inviting, groups of kids into the library. Couldn't do that clearly. So we're giving out nearly 200 school holiday packs a week, which is a collaboration between the library staff and the community development staff. It was a fraction of the cost that we usually spend on our school holiday program, but the benefit in terms of the community goodwill that it developed was enormous. Similarly, also a lot of the library staff have even converted their story time, their weekly story time with the little kids to an online format now as well. So I think tomorrow will be our third week of digital story time, which is broadcast on Facebook, and you can look forward to yours truly reading The Very Hungry Caterpillar tomorrow.
Councillor Spano.
The Evans Street traffic data information. Can we talk? Is that what we're talking? Can we talk on any of these, or we have to wait for that? That's on page 129. Have I gone ahead?
Haven't got there yet.
Okay.
Any more questions of Jerry? Councillor Hunter?
Yeah, comment more than anything on the library report. I mean, the One Library system is just magical, and I've linked in with the ebooks recently. I've never been a big reader because I was always reading documents and policies and rubbish, but the ebooks has just been exceptional. So I just highlight some of the work they've done. Has been excellent. The One Library's been a boost and a half. They got 197 books in the first week. I bet that's in the thousands. Now it's just so easy to do and free, and the access to the books is magical. That's on the library. The elected member requests 18.2 is yours as well, isn't it? Do we have an update on when Squiz is going to enable us to send in our cars and our community, our council activities and access the extranet? Where are we with that one?
Sorry, am I on mute? No. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you. I'll have to take that on notice. However, Squiz has moved on pretty quickly. I think I can see the CEO wanting to speak to that as well. Squiz has moved along fairly quickly, so I think most of Squiz functionality, if it's not there now, it's pretty close.
Tony?
Yeah, through the chair, Mr. Mayor, the staff are working on it at the moment. I'd hope by the end of the week they'd have that sorted. Councillor Hunter.
Councillor Howie? You're muted, Margaret.
Yeah, sorry. My comment, it's a question. Last council meeting, I asked about the location of the 3 dog and water fountains along the riverfront, and it was taken on notice, but there still hasn't been any response to where the 3rd one is.
Who was that for, Tim or Jerry?
Well, Tim took it on. Jerry took it on notice, and as I pointed out, there's one out here at the Jane Eliza, and there's one at the water, well, where the fountain is, which is apparently going to be relocated to the tourist office. I just want to know where the 3rd one is along the riverfront.
Any response, Jerry?
Not from me. Look, we can provide a response. As recently as soon as tomorrow, I'd say. I don't know if Tim has anything further he wants to say on that one though.
Yep, I can talk to that one. My apologies. I think that question may have come towards me at the last meeting. I know I do have a map of those water fountain somewhere in my emails, Councillor Howie. I've failed to forward that on to you, so I'll make sure that happens tomorrow.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim. Councillor Hunter?
Page 122 in the elected members' requests, there's an issue that was raised about the Paringa paddocks and the signage that have been knocked down and such. And it talks in there about determining how it's going to be maintained and opportunities to transition, all that sort of thing. But it's labelled completed. I would think it's not completed. We've taken some steps, but we've got a way to go. Am I reading that incorrectly? Page 122.
No, fair play. That's a fair comment. It's not completed in the sense that the issue still exists. We have had significant progress with our discussions with national parks in recent times, and I think we have effectively formed an agreement with them. They are keen to start branding under their own branding, which makes sense and is good, and it's fantastic for council. Because of course that is a national parks asset now, it's not a council asset. So the fact that they want to actually do that branding work of those tracks and trails under their own steam is great. But fair point, it's not that technically the actual work hasn't been completed yet. I'm happy to keep it as an ongoing.
But I mean, the work's been completed by council. It's now up to them to do their work.
It is, through you, Your Worship, it is. Look, fair enough though. I mean, from a community's perspective, the work hasn't actually been completed. The work isn't done. Yes, council has completed its role in it. We will continue to keep the pressure on national parks though, obviously. But again, look, I'm more than happy to keep that as an ongoing until we can actually confirm that national parks have done the job.
Okay, can I suggest that the comment be in there that council's completed its role, however, change the word completed to be pending, subject to National Parks and Wildlife.
Absolutely, thank you, Your Worship.
Did you have anything else, Councillor Hunter? Okay, nothing else from the Director of Corporate and Community. Moving on to page 123, Director of Infrastructure and Environmental Services. Someone prepared to move that that report be received? Councillor Howie, Councillor Simms, all those in favour? That's carried. Questions of Tim? Now, Councillor Howie, Councillor Spano, Evans Street.
Yeah, Tim, through the chair, Tim, when I brought this up, Bette Simons actually told me that she'd written a letter and it was to be tabled, but it was never tabled anyway, about the traffic that goes along there. And I think that's why I brought it up at the time, and you have done a survey on it. But Tim, I thought you said that she sort of put it there because there's one driver especially that does 50 to 60 k. I mean, he speeds down that street, and I thought you said at the time that you would know what that car was, or who owned that car. Is that the case? And that you would say something to them?
I guess through you, Mr. Bow, I don't think we would know actually who drives any of these vehicles. We just count what goes over the counter and what speed they're going.
Because it was...
If someone particularly knows who the person is, well, that's probably an issue for SAPOL to take up.
You just wait to get a registration number. That's quite easy. Give it to me and I'll report it. But we need registration.
It's Mr. Taylor.
Well, I suggest this meeting has been recorded, so can.
Oh, sorry. No, yeah, sorry.
Can I speak to me later on so I can forward that through? Thank you.
Well, that's the one. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other questions of Tim? Hunter? Councillor Hunter?
Thank you. Two things. One, the development assessments, the solar farms are 53 days, 28 days consistently. Is this something that the new planning code will help alleviate, or what is the issue with taking so long for these solar farms to get approved?
Tim?
Right. Firstly, Councillor Hunter, I'll have to take on notice the timing of the particular solar farms and why they are taking the time they are. But secondly, the new Planning Act does have substantial potential penalties for council if we don't meet the legislative timeframes, which it certainly means that we will be endeavouring to make sure we meet them at every time. But yeah, I'll have to take on notice just what's going on with the particular solar farm applications.
Because it has been consistent for quite a while that they take a lot longer. So it'd be interesting to find out why, for our own benefits as well as theirs, perhaps. The second thing relates to the PDI Act, page 132. There's going to be, is there going to be a need for people to be trained in how to utilise this new system? And if so, does this become a council responsibility in some way?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess it's a point that you've raised, Councillor Hunter, that we've been raising with DipTi for ever since this new system was brought upon us. At this stage, our staff aren't even trained in the new system, so until we know how it works, we can't really help anyone else. But certainly we've been suggesting that DipTi really need to get out to notify the broader community as to how this new system's going to work. We're certainly reticent to take on that responsibility to train other staff because this is really their system that they're implementing. But I guess in reality, once we know how the system works, we're not going to be telling people that go to DipTi. We'll be obviously trying to help people if they need a hand to deal with it. Certainly in the last week or two, a few of our local building companies are becoming more aware of the new system. I guess it's been something that's going to happen in, that's going to be next year or that's going to be in 6 months, but now it's in 2 months' time or potentially 3 months' time. And I guess they're realising that they need to engage this new system. But certainly until our staff know how to use it, we can't really help anyone else learn how to use it.
Councillor Hunter?
It just seems like it's a continually evolving mess, and this is the next thing that's going to hit us, and potentially we'll get blamed for not, preempting what we know is going to come anyway. So, yeah, I guess we just got to play as it comes. Thank you.
Yeah, certainly. I guess my observations from a project management that certainly it could have been done better, and we can certainly see that there's areas where we think that should have happened. But I guess my take at the moment is that I hear lots of negativity, certainly from other councils, about this, the whole new thing. And I don't disagree with some of their comments, but I guess from my point of view and what we're trying to impress on our staff is that we've got to try and take this on as positive as we can, because if we bring that negative mindset in, it is going to completely not work, and things are going to be probably worse than they could be. So we certainly are aware that things aren't perfect, but we'll try and make the best of the system that we get, and certainly try to ensure that we support our community as best we can in negotiating the new system.
In relation to building applications, and I spoke to Greg only today about, not a complaint, but a comment that I had from a ratepayer. Before Greg's time, and it would be at least a couple of years ago, we had issues with builders and applications being delayed or whatever for other reasons other than council. And I was the impression that council actually moved a resolution that when a request for information was sent to a builder, then a copy of that letter would go to the owner of the property as well, to make it quite clear that we are waiting on information from the builder, because 95% of the time councils get the blame, but it's not the council's issue. It's generally that the builders are not supplying the required information. So I think that practice, which I believe was there, Greg wasn't aware of it. Obviously, coming on the last couple of years, we need to pass that back on so that information goes out to applicants, not necessarily the applicant, because the applicant sometimes is the builder. It should go on to the property owner to make them fully aware of where the delay is. Any comment, Tim?
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I did actually have a chat to some of our staff that were around back when when we changed some of those practices and were sending out the additional letters. And certainly at the time it was probably warranted, given the basically the DAs were taking way too long at the time, and there was a lot of angst. So, but I guess what has occurred is we did do that practice, but it then created a lot more admin work for council. Not only sending out the additional letter wasn't so much, but then we were building a call from an owner and then the builder, who might have been the applicant, and it was just creating a lot more work. So it actually hasn't been a major issue in probably the last, I guess, 12, 18, maybe 24 months, as we are actually turning around our development applications in a much more timely manner. And I guess that with the new e-planning system, that we're actually going to be confined as to how that works in a couple of months' time. So I certainly understand why council went down the path that it did at the time. I don't believe it's really necessary for us to send out multiple letters at the moment, given that our performance is possibly a lot better now than it was. But certainly it's always been a perennial thing. Even when I was doing planning, 20 odd years ago, it was very often that council would always be the one to blame. But certainly with the new system, that it just we have to hit the timeframes anyway. So I certainly wouldn't be recommending we go back to that practice, but again, and coupled with that the system's going to be different in a couple of months' time anyway. So it'll all be over the e-planning portal.
Okay, I'll take that on notice, Tim. Have you got any comments, Tim, in relation to the third quarter annual business plan projects update? Do you want to make any comments there at all?
Only that I think we've had some previous reports just highlighting the projects we're expecting to carry forward. There's a lot of projects there that are on schedule, and they are on schedule, and there's a lot of projects that we'll actually finalise in May and June. And other than, I think we really set a very, very ambitious bar for us to complete the Capital Works program, and I think we've done quite a good job in being able to complete the majority of them, and we'll have complete the majority of them by the end of June.
Okay, any comments from anybody? Guru?
Yeah, just a quick question on page 135. Next to the curb and water table replacement, there's a number in there of $60. Is that meant to be 60,000, or is that meant to be $60? And same at 3.15, the Pringa Oval wastewater treatment plant. There's a number in there for 186. Just a typo, or what's happening there?
I anticipate typo, Henry, but I'll let Tim follow that up.
Yeah, what I suspect, we are following those out. I suspect both of those is probably an incorrect allocation. So it's probably some maintenance or something like that that's gone to that particular line. And we haven't actually expended any money as yet on those two projects. But we will follow those up.
Councillor Hunter?
Yeah, a couple of things if I might. The earlier comment that you raised, Mayor Martinson, in terms of elected members making a decision and then council staff decided that it wasn't necessary, logically that would have come back to elected members in an ideal world. I would think, for us to have that discussion rather than us be out there telling people what we think's happening and it's not. I feel ill at ease with the way that's happened, just following up your comments, Mayor Martinson. I accept we're moving into a new process, but if we're of one opinion and telling people that, I feel ill at ease that staff have made a decision that hasn't come back to at least inform us about that. So I'll just make that statement.
Yep, I'll take that. I'll have a discussion with Tony, but I'm had that person not spoke to me about that issue, because I spoke to that person about another issue, that's why it came up. We would not have known anyway, but I certainly take that on notice, and I'll speak to Tony about that as well.
Yeah, I've been telling people that that's the process. Yeah. I feel somewhat foolish. Anyway, that's okay. That's not the first time. The urban design framework to sign off. Can I chat about that briefly?
Yes, yep.
So it talks about the final scope and contract being finalised. I believe there are a number of items which weren't actually finalised. One of those being the rocks or reeds or wherever at the waterfront edge. So have all of those final details now been decided, or is there still some clarity to be had around exactly what it is we're doing down there?
Tim or Tony?
I believe all of the details have been finalised. The only outstanding item at the moment in terms of design is the actual, I guess, what do we call it, the viewing platform / jetty, because that's part of the tender. Is that's a design and construct process.
Because there was discussion about that embankment that was being eaten away, and the initial plans had some reeds they were going to plant there, I think, and then there was a discussion about rocks, and then there was a discussion about pylons. I don't think it ever came back to us, and I seem to recall it was a motion of, while Neil was away, of council with a list of items to be finalised. So can we get some clarity on exactly what has been finalised?
Certainly.
Can you have a look at that, Tim, and then get an email out to everybody in the next within the next week, please?
Yep.
And the third thing, because I like to finish on a bit more positive than those last couple, and that I do my stats each time. So the completed and the on schedules together is around that 75%. And it's been a lot of years since we've had 75% either done or scheduled to be done within the next couple of minutes. So we've certainly moved along far better than some other years in the not so distant past. So thank you to staff for that.
That'd be the next couple of months, not a couple of minutes, Councillor Hunter. Okay, if there's nothing else of Tim, there's no motions, any motions without notice. There's nothing listed in the general business. So we're now matter of going into confidence. So first of all, I need to take a motion that council go into confidence in relation to 21.3.1, the Renmark swimming pool. Someone prepared to move that? Councillor Maddox, got a seconder? Councillor Townsend, all those in favour? All those in favour, that's carried. Okay, Hugh, I assume you're still there because you're still listed on my document here. And I'll now remove you from the meeting.
Yeah, that's no problem. No, that went really well. And I think I'll meet with Tony at 9:30 tomorrow morning. I think we had it in for.
Yep. Yeah, Tony's just given me the thumbs up, so that's good.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right, thank you.
Thanks, mate. Catch you.
Have a good night. Bye.
So, more and remove.
I'm just going to close my one of the doors.
Okay. No, okay, yes.